So here we are now going to look into the origins of the EU ETS Directive. First of all, with the idea of this kind of scheme, and then the choice of instruments. So what is the idea? And what I call the idea here is the fact that we need to pay more attention to environment and so to climate change. And climate change has become a subject to scientific analysis. And we have discovered that there is a need to act with regard to climate change. This has come, first of all, from an inspiration which has its origin at international level. And then we have observed a progressive Europeanization of the environment policy, and the environment policy includes climate change. Over the last 30 years, let's say, climate change has evolved and has become more and more a priority for the European Union. And today we are constantly talking about decarbonization. This is one of the pillars of the European policy. And so you can see that climate change is truly a policy priority. The first European official document on climate change has been written in 1986, and there is no surprise that this is a parliamentary resolution because the European Parliament has been and still is very active on climate change issues. Then you know that there have been different international developments in the mid 80s. Then at the end of the 80s, there has been the establishment of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the so-called IPCC, again still active today. And at the same time, the European Union has really moved forward with its climate change policy, with the first communication from the European Commission, which has been called the Greenhouse Effect and the Community in 1988. And at the beginning of the 1990s, there has been a discussion at European level on the possibility of a carbon or an energy tax at European level. But then we have moved again a little bit further. And this year, 1990, is very important because it has become a reference year for the European policy on climate change and with regard to the accounting of emissions, of greenhouse gas emissions. One important date in the 1990s, of course, is 1997 with the signature of the Kyoto Protocol. And actually, the Kyoto Protocol has been ratified in 2004. And the year before, the European Union adopted its first EU ETS, or European Union Emissions Trading Scheme Directive. This is very interesting because in the year 2000, the European Union launched a specific program to look into the European contribution to the Kyoto Protocol. And it has moved forward quite quickly. And actually, the year after, when it proposed its first draft for the EU ETS Directive, the United States withdrew from the Kyoto Protocol. So there has been really a contrary movement parallel there, and the European Union has really tried ever since to become a leader at international level with regard to climate change. So, what are the choice of instruments? The principle is clear. So the idea is that that climate change is important, and the principle to make climate change important in everyday policy is to give a price to carbon. This is really a consensus at the international level ever since the 1990s. It hasn't changed, and this is the basis for the current European policy. So at the beginning of the 1990s, there has been a discussion on what kind of instrument should we put in place to give a price to carbon. And the two options on the table were a cap and trade system or a carbon tax. And if you talk to the people who were already working in the European Commission at that time, you are going to learn that actually the choice of a cap and trade system was made because there was a fierce opposition to a tax. Opposition by businesses, and also taxation is a fiscal issue which requires unanimity in the Council of the European Union. So, cap and trade it was. It has been developed over the years, first of all starting in the United States, and then, as said before, the European Union took over this principle. And one term that is very important is the least cost solution. The cap and trade system is supposed to be the least cost solution, and this is still a guiding principle today in the EU ETS Directive. So, this directive emerged in the European Union in 2003. This was the first EU ETS Directive.